Hello, my name is Aaron Kavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, if you're in Dublin this Sunday and have the evening free, you should really go and check out Music and Mental Health Festival at the Workman's Club. Part gig, part panel, Music and Mental Health Festival aims to be an inclusive and safe environment for musicians, industry professionals and fans alike to share their experiences of how the industry can be a challenge to their mental well-being. It features a panel and discussion from former post-party frontman Keelan O'Reilly, industry veteran Vernon Jane manager, AMS Records founder and current director of Minding Creative Minds Anne-Marie Shields, musician, music therapist and founder of the therapy department at the Royal Irish Academy of Music Jessica Harris, sound engineer, promoter, manager and Doolittle Presents founder Julie Cooper, artist and songwriter Maria Kelly and creative arts therapist Lindsay Connolly. Then across the main room and cellar you'll see a variety of amazing acts on the Irish music scene, including the indie pop rising stars Modern Love, who are currently blowing up, and this will probably be one of the last times you get to see them in such a small environment. Emilio, the Dublin-based German experimental electronic artist, self-described moody folk abrasive sounds rocker Zalafi, the punk-fused alt-rocker Siamniotics, the indie pop storyteller Anna Lee, the earthy finger-picking maestro Navia Sharman, and the subject of today's interview, the indie folk singer-songwriter Nancy Kay. Tickets are $15.90 for those who'd like to attend the gig and panels, or $12.90 for those who solely wish to attend the gigs. A link for tickets can be found in this episode's description. As mentioned, our guest today is Nancy Kay, who talks to us not only about the festival and her reason for participating, but also learning piano at a young age, how that eventuated into her attending BIM, working with other musicians, starting and fronting the punk band Orchid Feeder, how listening to Katie Tunstall inspired her to go solo, the fear and trepidation of vulnerability from going solo, recording her debut EP Above the Water at the iconic Windmill Lane Recording Studios, the meaning behind each track on the EP, and so much more. That's better, yeah.
Okay, amazing, perfect.
Thanks for talking to me. I'll try and take up too much of your time.
No worries.
The first thing I wanted to ask was a little bit about your background. I mean, my understanding is that you've been playing music from a very young age. There was a piano in your house, and you took it up when you were about six, and it was kind of, if I'm correct, it was kind of based more so on just instinct of what kind of sounded right or what kind of felt right you'd kind of go with. I was wondering what kind of like once you kind of like knew how to play an instrument, were you listening to music at that time that was kind of influencing the sounds you were making, or did you kind of was it kind of backward? Did you kind of start with the instrument then start getting into music?
I think it was that way. Yeah, I think it was I started with piano and then it was well, it wasn't that I had never heard music before then, but it was that that would yeah, sad existence. No, it was that I started to pay more attention to like the music that my parents were playing because I grew up in a kind of eclectic music household. Like
Mhm.
on the one hand, my mom is very into like sort of classic rock, like sort of a lot of Fleetwood Mac, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Huey Lewis, all sorts of fun 70s, 80s rock stuff. And then on the other hand, my dad loves like random folk music. Like he's very into like sort of traditional Irish and English folk music and stuff like that. So I grew up with a sort of a mixture of that. And then what else? My uncle likes a lot of jazz. So it was all sorts of random stuff basically. And I so it's from the piano that I learned then to like really pay attention to and sort of analyze music from that point of view,
Mhm.
I guess. That's when the analysis began anyway. So yeah, yeah.
Did you study music in school? I know obviously later you studied that at third level education, but
Mhm.
in primary and secondary school did you study music?
I did indeed, yeah, I did. I did lessons all the way up through through primary and secondary school. But so I started off with piano. I didn't actually start singing lessons until I was kind of I was a little older actually. I was like maybe 10 or 11, I think. So piano was the first thing, but then I yeah, I did music all throughout primary and secondary school, but I wasn't terribly good at like lessons, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Uh like my piano teachers often got very annoyed at me because I, instead of practicing the pieces that I was supposed to have practiced, I was just like, ooh, let's try and make a song. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah. So yeah. I don't know how much
I,
of the lessons went in. Like
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, because obviously your background was very, as you mentioned, kind of like instinctual and kind of you had a lot of a preference for like textures and kind
yeah.
of I guess just like just chord progressions in general. Just but how do you find kind of going from I guess that kind of instinctual sort of almost childlike kind of fascination with music
Mhm.
to actually studying it at a kind of formal level? Did you find that that kind of ruined some of the mystique or the magic, or did it actually kind of age you? How do you find that?
It's I guess it's well, I don't know. It's a sort of um a bit of both, I guess. It's I I have a kind of an analytical brain to begin with, so I always want to like no, I see this thing. It's weird. I was bad at lessons, but I like music theory like a lot, and I'm very I try and come up with stuff in a kind of like a cerebral way where I'm like actively thinking about time signature and like I'm a I'm a pretentious chord nerd, so I love just any I love like modal stuff and interesting crunchy chords and like fun timbres and stuff. So on the one hand, like formal education obviously helped because I could then learn theory, but on the other hand, I felt kind of hemmed in, I guess, by like the knowledge and terminology and sort of the not necessarily the need to be like right, but the
Hmm.
need to sort of have like functional harmony, I guess. And I I guess part of the my like solo stuff is attempting to get rid of that a little bit and just write stuff that sounds good to me
Yeah.
and go back to the like 6-year-old me hitting piano keys going, this is great. I'm trying to go back to that. Yeah.
So all those years of education just to regress.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit. A little bit. Although I now know that my I can name what I'm doing as I'm regressing. So there's that anyway.
Yeah, that's worthy, Well,
Yeah,
actually, as we're gonna get into it, I mean, obviously you have a very versatile range of musical tastes and interests. I was wondering
mm,
for you, as you mentioned, that that was kind of born from your background and kind of having a family who listened to a plethora of things. I was
yeah.
wondering from for you, like what was the first kind of like artists that you remember kind of being your own that like you discovered individually and were kind of that kind of influenced your taste?
Ooh, good question. I think I'm gonna have to go with KT Tunstall on that one.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, that was the first, that whole Eye to the Telescope album. Um, I found it in a pile of my aunt's old CDs, I think. I can't remember whose pile of old CDs it was. It was a relative's pile of old CDs. Um, and I was like, this looks interesting. And I listened to the whole album all the way through. I was like, this is really good. And there was so much interesting texture going on and lots of modal stuff. This is all stuff that I like to use now. And what else? There was a fun song halfway through the album that was in uh 5/8 some of the way through. It was like mixed meters, like 5/8 and 6/8. I was like, that's really good. I like that. That's really good. I want to do that. So definitely KT Tunstall for that. That sort of she sounds like a very like a sort of a homegrown singer-songwriter type sound, which I like, but also there was interesting musical idea stuff going on. So yeah, definitely her.
And then when before you went to BIM, were you playing in bands? Were you doing live shows solo, or did all that kind of start after you went to BIM?
I'm so glad you asked. I had not a lot of experience playing in many bands until college. There was one band I was in secondary school. It was a really crappy Green Day cover band.
It's a rite of passage. So many
Absolutely,
artists is like,
absolutely.
yeah, I've been in pop punk band when I was a teen. It's like, yeah, that's right.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, we've all been there. Anyway,
Yeah.
um so yes, my really, really bad Green Day cover band, and I played bass
Okay.
in the band because nobody else wanted to play the bass, so I learned how to play the bass.
That's a
So
cool
that
way of
was
doing it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, because sort of begrudgingly like fine, I'll do it, and then it was fun. So
Yeah.
I now play bass as a result, so that's fun. But only if it's Green Day song.
Okay. So just long view, that's it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But then going into college, obviously it was all like 95% performance based and it was all 95% ensemble based as well.
Mhm.
So from there, I figured I really liked to play for other people. And unfortunately, in BIM, there's no keyboard stream, but if there were a keyboard stream, I would have done that.
Mhm.
I did vocals, but I ended up just playing keyboards for people most of the time anyway. Um, so yeah, I got stuck in and I went the exact opposite direction from having like almost no ensemble experience to having like way too much ensemble
Yeah.
experience to the point where I was like, Nancy, how many rehearsals do you have this week? Oh, like 8 or 9. Like, are you good? Maybe, I don't know. But I've pared it back now a little bit. I still obviously I play like as a sort of a gun for hire for a few bands, but it's less of that now.
Cool. You're like you're able to kind of set back and go, I need to have some me time. Was that
Yeah,
was that
exactly.
was that influenced actually by going solo to kind of like because I know you do Orchard Feeder and you do your
Hmm.
solo stuff.
Yeah,
I guess those are your two primary
yeah.
acts. Was it the kind of need to sort of balance those two acts that you kind of had to say, okay, because actually the first time I saw you was when you were with Andromeda the first at Queer Fest. That's so
Yes.
that. So you're still doing it. Like that was quite recently. So, but
Yeah.
how do you kind of like make the distinction to go, guys, don't get offended, but I just need to take some time.
Yeah, it was difficult. It was very difficult, I won't lie, because I am bad at saying no to things.
Yeah.
But I think it got to the point that I figured I enjoyed being a contributing member to bands. Um, and I like playing more original stuff than covers, for example. So if I weigh up the set list of I mean, whatever band I'm in, and I'm like, do I actually like playing this music? Because I um want to be able to I want to be able to play stuff that I like. And is the ensemble I'm playing with right now nice? Do I? And you don't have to be mates with them, but you have to get on with them to a certain
Mhm.
extent. So do I like the band? Do I like the music? Um, is my brain itch sort of being scratched? I guess because
Right.
I am neurodivergent, which means that my nervous system is interest based, meaning it's very hard to do stuff that I have no interest in.
Right.
I wish it weren't that way, but alas, here we are. So so if the music is interesting, if the people are interesting, and if I have a not a core role, but like a role in which I contribute a lot. Like so, even if I'm not contributing in a writing sense, I play keyboards for a singer-songwriter called Boring Brown Eyes,
Oh yeah.
and um, that role for me is often like sort of arrangement, like live arrangement, a little bit of musical direction, that kind of stuff. So that is like a big enough role that like my brain gets a workout basically. So yeah.
How do you find kind of actually playing with different bands and different projects and kind of like because obviously what you're being asked to do is very different, but it's always kind of
Mhm.
your voice. It's always kind of and I mean that literally and also just in terms of like
Yeah.
your playing style. Yeah, I was wondering how do you find kind of I guess sort of morphing your style to each different project? Is that a
Mhm.
challenge or is that something that just comes naturally to you?
I think it comes naturally. It's nice because I love variety. So I really enjoy playing in a multiple different genres. And I think that probably comes down to like the random eclectic mix of stuff I listened to when I was at home, like when I was younger, probably. So I've always just liked playing like a variety of different genres. But I think it also is me being neurodivergent as well, because that means I'm very good at mimicry, which means
Yeah.
that I can pick I can pick out and isolate like elements of a style that I'm supposed to be playing in, and I can go, okay, well, I'll apply that to my own style of playing, so I can fit in the style appropriately, I guess. So it's I enjoy doing it. It's good fun. It's good fun.
Do you find that your time in BIM and your time playing with other artists is kind of diversifies your palette in terms of what you listen to after the fact, or has it not? Has it kind of remained the same? How do you find that?
Um, it has remained the same in that it is still eclectic, but it is just broader now, I
Mhm.
think. Because I mean, I'm open-minded about genres, and there are very few things that I don't really like, but I yeah, I just listen to maybe more obscure artists or maybe more niche genres than I did previously. For example, I always liked like metal because I had an emo slash metalcore phase when I was like 14 because
Yeah.
haven't we all?
Yeah.
Um, and I am now so I've always liked metal, whatever, but I'm now in um an experimental synthwave metal band. That's my newest venture. So yeah, it's just more broad basically is the answer to that question. Yeah.
Do you want to plug that band, or is it too new to talk about?
No, it's a band called Dux et Rex, which is
Okay.
Dukes and Kings in Latin. And it is cross like Cyberpunk 2077 with like the Byzantine Empire, and that's what you get basically.
Okay.
So
That's a
it's
hell
a
of a sell.
concept band. Yeah. The concept band. It's very like uh Nine Inch Nails, Caro Caro Bonito, those kind of yeah, like it's sort of a little bit prog, a little bit doom, a little bit synthwave. Ta-da!
I look forward to hearing that. Um,
It's
I,
really
I
good.
I have to ask when it comes to the chronology of your career,
Mhm.
um, just to make sure I got this correct, Orchard
Yeah.
Feeder came first, and then your solo project was after. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, it did. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you find that your time in Orchard Feeder, which is kind of I don't know how to describe it, kind of like lo-fi punk, kind of going
Mhm.
from that to the sort of Americana sort of indie folk inspired music that you do as your solo career, do you find that that was a reaction to the kind of music you were doing in Orchard Feeder and kind of wanting to branch out and like we said, kind of stretch kind of all your musical interests, or is it just coincidental?
It was a little bit of both actually. So we started off doing yeah, that was the Orchid Feeder was I had already written a bunch of songs, but they were in like old notebooks from 2016, and they were just like random. There's just random stuff that was not at all a coherent uh set of lyrics or whatever. It was all just random musings and stuff.
Right.
Anyway, so I had those already, and then obviously I started doing like the sort of the riot girl punk kind of Orchid Feeder stuff, and then I was like, well, I like this, but also I kept coming back to like, what do I want my own kind of sound to be like? And then I re-listened to Eye to the Telescope, the KT Tunstall album. I was like, yeah, yeah, this is what I want to well, this is the vibe that I want to evoke, rather, the
Mhm.
vibe that I want to emulate. Um, and um, and then I thought, okay, well then what else do I like? And I'm interested in like organic textures, I suppose. Like obviously like I like a lot of wooden instruments. Like you can hear a lot of shakers and stuff, but they're all wooden things and they're all like grass brushes and stuff used in the recording of the EP. And so all of those kind of acoustic sounding instruments, because I find that very like calming, I guess. And it was, yeah, I suppose it was a reaction to the Orchid Feeder stuff, because it was just the almost the exact opposite. Um, so it just sort of happened as a result of that, I guess. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what my own sound was, and it was something a bit like that. Yeah.
It's interesting because, like, obviously, I think when you listen to your project in the Orchid Feeder music, I mean, sonically, there's obviously a huge difference. But I was
Hmm.
wondering, from your perspective, from a lyrical perspective, how do you find
Hmm.
writing for one project versus the other? Because actually, it's going to be fitting when we talk about the festival we're here to plug. But
Yeah.
I noticed, like, obviously, Sertolin as a song by Orchard Feeder, it
Hmm.
deals with the topic of mental health.
Yeah.
Obviously, Above the War, the entire EP, sorry, it kind of deals with mental health as well as kind of personal kind of self-esteem issues, and
Yeah.
it's a very personal, very like you like a, what I would say is, as I was kind of listening to the album and really kind of engage, or the EP rather, and really engaging with the lyrics, is that I really felt like a kind of mental health journal in a way,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
kind of makes sense now. You've kind of explained it like that. I was
Yeah.
wondering, from a lyrical perspective, how do you find writing for the two different projects?
I almost think they're like two sides of the same coin, I
Hmm.
guess. Because obviously with Orc Theater we also write about personal experience and stuff, but just from a different angle, I suppose. Where so the subject matter is essentially the same, but it's just Orc Theater is an outlet for anger, I suppose,
Hmm.
and like more, it's more the effect and the emotion is more uh forward, I suppose. Whereas my solo stuff is more on the introspective side. It's less yeah, it's a little less loud, I guess, for want of a better word. But essentially there are two sides of the same coin, because I stick to the principle of write about what you know,
Hmm.
mostly. So I yeah, it's the lyrical process is kind of the same. It's just the delivery of it is different, depending on what project it is, and the sound is changed. And maybe it's from like a slightly different angle, but otherwise it's mostly the same writing process.
Actually, I mentioned Sertland there. Shout out, by the way. I just happened to have someone by there.
Hey, nice, nice,
This is not,
nice.
sponsored content. Um, yeah, but when I was kind of listening to your album, so sorry, DP. Actually, I just wanted to, before I talk about the DP, it came out
Yeah,
last October. I was wondering, how
yeah.
long were you actually doing your solo stuff prior to that?
Oh, not that long actually. I was so busy doing other people's projects that I was kind of putting it on the back foot. And also I was kind of, yeah, I was avoiding doing it because I uh don't like vulnerability or
Right.
failure. I was kind of avoiding it because I didn't want to uh have a result that I wasn't happy with. So it's like, well, I won't be unhappy if I never do it. That's
Yeah.
fine. Um, but it was that earlier that year anyway is when I started actually like arranging and um fully properly giving a go at my own stuff. I think maybe January or February that year, probably at the start. Yeah, towards the start of 2023 is when I started actually properly arranging like my songs, because I had all the songs. It was just I'd written them on the piano, but then I had to think about like live arrangements and instrumentation and stuff. But yeah, it was literally only that year, and only the beginning of that year that I started doing solo stuff. So not that long, really.
The EP was recorded at Windmill Lane Studio. I was wondering,
Hmm.
the legendary iconic
Yeah,
studio where like pretty much well, every Irish act is pretty much recorded there, and like so
yeah,
many international acts. They also do a
yeah.
lot of like really cool like soundtracks and films scores there too, and video
Yeah,
games recently actually, which is
nice.
kind of cool. Again, not plugging anyone. But I was wondering, what, from your perspective, what was it like to actually record there, and how do you find that recording in that studio kind of or did it alter what the end product kind of became?
Definitely it did. It was great. It was great. I was lucky to happen to know my wonderful producer Ellen Beamish used to go to Pulse College.
Hmm.
So she was familiar with Studio One in Windmill Lane, and so she works there as like a production intern now at the moment. But I was just lucky that I knew Ellen previously, and she's a fantastic producer. And so she was like, "Hey, do you want to?" She approached me actually about recording, and suggested Windmill Lane. I was like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, yeah, okay. I absolutely will say yes to that.
Imagine if you're like
And
not for the home thing.
yeah, right, exactly. No, thank you. Only crunchy audio quality for me. Um, but no, it's yeah, it definitely informed the sound as far as like it was very expansive, and a lot of the arrangements then as a result when we were actually editing it became very expansive, like pan everything as far out as it can go, like add so many things because there was so much space in the mix because of the huge room. It afforded you so many cool qualities, especially with the vocals as well. Like what Ellen does is she has the whole room. Obviously it's a massive room, you can't just record vocals in a massive room, but she sets up like a little mini isolation booth in the
Mhm.
middle of the room. So you get all of the ambient sounds around the outside, but then you also have this really close up kind of personal sounding vocal take. So it was the combination of that, and then she fed in the room reverb like separately as well. So then it all sounded really very wide and expansive and big, and so that definitely was the best part of the sound, I think, for sure.
Something I was just thinking of there when you were saying that. I mean, like you were talking earlier about how you don't like being vulnerable, and the EP is
Mm,
a very vulnerable EP. It's very
hmm.
personal.
Yeah.
Do you find it difficult then when you're kind of like working with friends as a producer to kind of actually sing those things to them? And also when it came to, obviously, because with the arrangement of the band that you're playing with on the EP, were they people you knew prior? Or were they session musicians? What was your kind of dynamic with them, and was it difficult singing in front of them as well?
Yeah. It was a little difficult. I am I am well, I like to think that I'm professional about it. So it's like just get in, do the job is my kind of attitude to it, I suppose. So I it was a little difficult because I would do like a take, and it would be like, that sounds really good. And I would be like, I don't know, it's kind of cringe, but whatever. I don't know. Um, but yeah, it was a little difficult, but I obviously I knew Ellen previously, and my the wonderful band that were playing are all mates, so that helped. Um, that I they know by now that I will apologize for my existence every 5 seconds. So they're used to the like, oh, I don't know, it's kind of cringe. I don't know, I don't like it. And they would just ignore me and just continue on. And that's what was necessary, I think. So yeah, yeah.
I want to just say on the EP for 1 second longer. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I was kind of, when I was listening to it, I was like really engaging with the lyrics, and this is my interpretation. I don't know, like you can tell
yeah,
me if I'm full of shit,
yeah.
but
No, go on.
no, but Nomad song. I mean, obviously there was I think of there was a sense of I felt a real sense of stagnation and feeling like you're in a rut. There was also I felt again
Hmm.
a kind of a sort of fear of feeling unable to course correct your life and steer it into
Hmm.
a direction you want, which is something I definitely relate to.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
then with Mother Wound, it felt like a song about being kind of underappreciated or feeling a sense of inadequacy, which again I
Hmm.
think a lot of people relate to. But I
Yeah.
think while there is a kind of a lingering theme of melancholia kind of running through the EP, I think it
Hmm.
actually ends on a very optimistic note. I'll be there, where
Yeah.
I think with the understanding of kind of loneliness and isolation, which is experienced, it's essentially kind of offering an olive branch and saying, well, I'll be there if, because I've been there, and I think it's an interesting perspective too, because I think when people are through that, I don't really blame anyone for this, but you can either go one way, and you can kind of be like, well, I've been through these kind of like harsh experiences too, and I'm
Hmm.
going to try and aid people who
Yeah.
are also going through it, or you can get kind of cynical and bitter and go, oh, no one's there for me, fuck them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was wondering, like, was that kind of thematic through line sort of thought out? Because I know, if I'm correct, you kind of do lyrics prior to the music kind of accompanies the lyrics rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, did you kind of like have that kind of thematic through line for the EP, or is that just kind of how it came out? And how off
Um,
base was I?
no, no, you're pretty close actually. Yeah. Nomad Song is definitely, yeah, stagnation is a good word. Yeah. It's Nomad Song is about kind of it's for me it's like loss of innocence, loss of your former self. Like you've lost that, you're trying to get it back, but you can't find it. So you're just kind of sitting there waiting for it to come back, vaguely, and that's obviously that's not how it works. And you can't get back your former self. So then from there, that was always going to be the first one, I think. But from there, the rest kind of happened as we recorded it. I was like, oh yeah, okay, well it makes sense then in terms of like a narrative that like Mother Wound should come after that. Um, and that's, yeah, absolutely, you're right. It's being sort of underappreciated. Like straining to be in a sense like striving to be liked, I guess,
Mhm.
definitely, because we've I think we've probably all experienced something like that. And then um yeah, obviously I'll be there at the end, fundamentally sort of realizing, well, this is the right thing to do is to not let like life experiences harden you, and to remain open to like receiving like love and friendship and all that fun stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and it wasn't yeah, so Nomad Song was always going to be the first one, but the other ones, I wasn't sure what I was gonna do with them, or in what order to put them. But as we had them recorded and I was thinking about like the interludes, for example, like which one will lead into which one, I it sort of appeared as like a good way to lay out the track list. I was like, this makes sense. So it wasn't exactly predetermined, but it sort of fell into place, I guess. And it's interesting that you say on the one hand, the ending will be there. It's like, oh, this is positive. I'm remaining open uh to like friendship and relations and whatever, and um helping people or whatever, because or you could be like cynical and go fuck everybody,
Yeah.
because that is the that's the other side of the coin, and the other side of the coin is Orchid Feeder. So funny that you should say that. That's the Orchid Feeder goes the opposite direction. Fuck
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's
So
healthy to exercise that too,
yeah,
to exercise
absolutely,
the fuck everyone kind of attitude. But
absolutely.
I actually have a question relating to that, which is
Yep.
based on, I think a lot of these fears and kind of inadequacies, whether justified or not, and I think most of the time, people can say this, but it's like it's something that's just never going to resonate. But I do think
Yeah.
like a lot of times they're more overblown than perhaps you think. But obviously,
Yeah.
that's not comforting to know.
No.
But I was wondering, as a public figure, as well, I guess now as a public figure, someone who's kind of putting their work out there to be consumed by the public. Do you find that that kind of amplifies any of those fears or insecurities? Because then there becomes the additional issues of like, or the additional kind of means of justifying your worth in the sense of like, am I
Hmm.
getting enough plays? Am I getting enough follows? Am I, who's
Hmm.
actually paying attention to me? Am I getting
Yeah.
enough reviews and all this kind of stuff? Do you find
Yeah.
that that kind of adds fuel to the fire, or is that, I don't know, what's your kind of relationship with that side of things?
I mean, it definitely does, not necessarily add fuel to fire, but it like um, adds more oxygen, I guess, maybe. Because I think it's always in the back of my head for sure. But if uh being bad at vulnerability and still releasing that EP for people to hear is anything to go by, then sharing the vulnerability and being publicly like vulnerable and here I'm putting myself on blast for you all. That's a good thing I now see. So and I've always, I don't know, I've always been on the one hand like uh obviously neurodivergent, trying to fit in my whole life, all that fun stuff. But then on the other hand, um I have been called Tesco finest Bridget Jones by many mates. So I'm channeling
That's a very
that.
specific thing for them all to come up with individually.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they've all sort of said like, oh yeah, sort of Bridget Jones type vibe.
Sure.
Um, and then I think somebody said like little own brand Bridget Jones or whatever. So it's all supermarket own brand Bridget Jones basically. Um, so that's because she's, and you know what, I like that comparison actually because she's an absolute mess and a very emotionally and physically and generally all over the place and vulnerable kind of character, but she's lovable for that exact reason.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, vulnerability, as much as I hate doing it, and as much as the feelings of inadequacy are amplified by like, oh no, will people like my music thoughts? It's yeah, it's ultimately a good thing to be doing, I guess. And yeah, it's ultimately a good thing. It'll make uh it makes clear that I'm a human being, basically. That's the
Yeah.
vibe. Yeah.
Actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that British Jones there. I don't want to go into too much of a tangent, but the
Okay.
the first movie was on TV not too long ago, actually.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you were mentioning like, within the context of the film, she's meant to be this like mess and just like, oh, she doesn't have her
Yeah.
shit together. And I was looking at,
Yeah.
it, I was like, she has her own place. She has like a high
Yeah.
paying job. She has great
Oh yeah.
friends and like two guys who are like crazy in love with her. I'm like, she seems to be doing all right.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's 100%. Because yeah, it's like a sort of there was I guess the mess part came from like I don't know, she's like a bit socially awkward. She's got like I don't know the actually the amount of body shaming jokes in that movie. Oh my
Yeah.
God, now that I think about it. But yeah, it's like the sort of I guess the mess was like an external label, I guess. Like she's patriarchal scrutiny type of vibe.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's yeah, I've had that. I've been externally labeled a bit of a mess and like an agent of chaos occasionally. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's why I relate to her because I'm yeah, externally I've been called a bit of a mess, but that's and maybe I've internalized it, I guess. But it's not a bad thing, I guess. So that's yeah, that's that.
You should say, "Who the hell are you to fucking label
Yeah,
me?" All these people, like,
exactly.
it's weird though. Like, what it is again, that kind of like relation with I guess like being a public figure to whatever extent you feel comfortable with that label.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the idea of like, because I'm sort of presenting my music or I'm presenting myself on stage as like as a musician, or I'm even
Mhm.
I'm talking to you in somewhat of a I guess parasocial way, that kind of gives you an ability to kind of like know me. It's like it's such a ridiculous assertion, I think.
Yeah. Oh, no, definitely. And I'm definitely a generally, I don't know, I am an introverted person and I do like privacy and all that, but um I am no stranger to making a fool out of myself in public settings. So for that reason, I am fine with that. I have no issue with that. But yes, I do like, yeah, I do like to keep an air of mystery, I suppose, a little bit, until I inevitably uh, make a fool of myself in a public setting. But anyway,
Actually, something I want to ask, and just sticking with this theme is,
yeah.
when I have like just normal social interactions with people,
Mhm.
I've often like I'll then be in my like bedroom later on, just like kind of reviewing the process in my head, like fuck, that like
Yeah.
I don't know, just like over analyzing everything. I was wondering
Yeah.
from the perspective, do you kind of have that with the crowd? Do you kind of like think about like shit, that person didn't seem into that song, or is that something that even like occupies your mind as you're performing? How do you find kind of performing and interacting with the crowd from that kind of as you mentioned, that kind of neurodivergent perspective, kind of
Yeah.
how is that for you, I guess?
It's a little difficult because I definitely do the debrief after every single gig
Yeah.
in my own head, going, "Oh, that was really bad. I didn't think they liked this song, or blah blah. The response to this song wasn't what I hoped, or blah blah." Um, so definitely there's an element of that, and also uh, I struggle with knowing what the right face to make is. So that's also, and also tone of voice as well. And I'm like, okay, so I should address the audience in this tone and hopefully it's the right one and all that good stuff. But I find um that you if your intentions are positive and you have like positivity on your mind as you're saying, and you have like, yeah, so if you have positivity and intention when you say things um to an audience, they will receive it well, regardless of if it's socially wrong or whatever. To If I um pull a face by accident when I hit a high note or something like that, it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't affect the overall reception as long as you are genuine. And I
Hmm.
think that's what I attempt to be anyway, is I attempt to be as genuine as possible in any kind of audience interaction. And that comes across, I hope. Oh, I hope. It's this is a random quote that I always like to think of, but this is very anyway. It's from from Roald Dahl's The Twits.
Okay.
There is a line um in it which goes, "If you think good thoughts, those thoughts will shine out of your face like sunbeams, and you will always look lovely." Um, and so that is the vibe that I'm trying to go for. Is if I approach audience interactions and performances with thinking good thoughts, and for those are like positivity, openness to interaction regardless of whether it goes wrong or not,
Hmm.
and yeah, like a little vulnerability, and a sort of a respect and appreciation for those who are in the audience, then it's never going to go as bad as you think it is. So yeah.
That's perfect. I guess the final thing I just want to talk about is actually the festival, the Music Mental Health
Yes.
Fest, June 9th at Workman's Club. Great lineup, Modern Love, Emilio, Laffy, The
Mhm.
Amniotics, Annalie, and yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering, how did you get involved with this festival, and kind of what made you say yes?
Yes. Well, I first got involved with the festival last year, on its inaugural day.
Mhm.
and I was uh, doing tickets on the doors because I know Zoe, one of the founders, and she asked me to do the doors. So I said, absolutely, of course. And I obviously got to, while sitting at the door, I got to listen to everything that was going on, and I got to hear some of the panels and obviously the artists playing, and it was really lovely. And the atmosphere was very wholesome, and the workshops all sounded very um, like productive and very interesting and open, and everybody seemed to be enjoying themselves. And so I had a positive experience right off the bat. And everybody's very welcoming, and the atmosphere was just generally very warm, which was very nice. And then when Zoe and Yana, the two founders, asked me, would I like to do it actually as an artist? I was like, absolutely. Um, because if the vibes of the last one were anything to go off of, then uh, this one is obviously going to be excellent, and the vibes are going to be warm and welcoming as they were previously. So yes,
That's perfect. Thank
yeah,
you very much for your time, Nancy. Is there
of
anything
course.
you'd like to add before we wrap up, or?
I no, I don't think so. That I think that's it.
Perfect. Thanks for taking time, and I
Of
really
course.
enjoyed this. Could I
Oh,
just
thank
ask
you.
one thing? Would you mind just email me some promo pics I can use for the article? Just any pictures you have.
Yeah, of
Uh,
course.
Perfect. Thanks. And
Absolutely.
also, I'm going to be going to. I think you're playing it. Actually, I'm going to be going to. Uh, oh my God, I can't think of the name off the top of my head. The gig you have coming up with Orchard Feeder.
Ah, yes. Oh, the Shadow Puppets gig on
Yes, I'll be
the
going to.
31st.
So I'll say hi if I see you.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, perfect.
Take
Wonderful.
care of yourself, and it was really nice talking with you.
Yes, lovely to talk to you too. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're an independent venture run by yours truly, and as I said at the beginning, liking, rating, subscribing, and sharing really helps us out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a PayPal donation link in the episode description, but don't feel obligated, of course. We've also begun releasing occasional exclusive episodes on Spotify, so subscribe there if you'd be interested in hearing those. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.